introduce Steve in absentia. He is a familiar face to Columbus Rotary. Steve pays the bills by working at the Columbus Bar Association, or Ohio State Bar Association, I'm sorry. But we know him more as the local foodie. He and a couple other friends of ours are passionate about food. They teach cooking classes. I think you're teaching currently at the Franklin Park Conservatory.
Yep.
And you've judged and done lots of charity events. I know you have a radio show on WOSU radio and TV, or just radio?
It's on TV too.
TV,
I have
okay.
a perfect face for radio.
Yes, yes. Well, that's great. Well, fellow Rotarians, help me welcome Steve Stover to Rotary with a warm, muted hand clap.
Thank you, Michael, and for the lovely introduction and for the invitation, and thanks to Scott for all that he does for Rotary. We were talking earlier, I think this is at least my 7th visit to the Columbus Rotary, dating back to 2001. Apparently my records don't go back much further. My last visit was one of the most fun in December of 2018, when I was part of the Tummy Trilogy between Chris Duty and Cameron Mitchell. We won't soon forget that. And Michael's right. My buddy Rich Terapak and I and Ann Fisher get together on WOSU radio on the first Friday of every month at 11 a.m. for an hour of talking about food and restaurants. It's been a tough year. We've had the CEO of the Ohio Restaurant Association twice and Cameron Mitchell on once this year to talk about what's going on. We do have a blog. If you want to jot it down, we're at my reviews are at www.wosu.org/chefs. That should be easy to remember. And also, you may want to have a pencil, because I'm going to be going pretty quickly through the restaurants that are open and flourishing. And so, believe it or not, I've been doing restaurant reviews now for 35 years, dating back to 1985 when I started on WOSU, and that's before WTVN with Bob Connors and Zagat Survey, and then I'm back to WOSU for the last 15 years. The last 10 years, even without Hankey's, Rigsby's, Rosendale's, and Lantebe, have been among the most exciting. We've gained dozens of wonderful young new chefs. The restaurants are notably much more casual than they were back in the day. But of the 2020 Columbus Monthly Top 10 restaurant list, 8 restaurants are less than 10 years old, including number 1 Veritas, number 2 Wolf's Ridge, number 3 Watershed Bar and Kitchen, number 4 Service Bar at Middle West Spirits, number 6 Commune, number 8 Gallery Bar and Bistro at the Hilton, number 9 Guild House, and number 10 Ambrose and Eve. 4 are less than 4 years old, and 2, Commune and Ambrose and Eve, both of which I'll talk about in a minute, are only 1 year old. Of course, the Refectory is the grand dame of the Columbus restaurants with well over 40 years, and G. Michaels rounds out the top 10. That's the Columbus Monthly Top 10. I might argue about a couple. I'd like to have Bazzi Italia and La Tavola in there, but nevertheless, that shows you how much the restaurant scene has changed. Since my last visit in 2018, there is breaking news. America discovers Columbus. Last year, the New York Times had 3 feature articles about Columbus. In January, Columbus was listed among the 52 places in the world to visit in 2019. In March, there was a follow-up article that talked mostly about Columbus restaurants, including Service Bar, and had an interview with Cameron Mitchell. And then in September, the article was The New Hangout in Columbus, ? Distilleries. And by the way, you notice that they didn't say Columbus, Ohio. And that features Service Bar, Watershed, High Bank Distillery, and others. Also in 2019, Cameron Mitchell Restaurants was named one of the top 20 restaurant groups in America, and Del Mar SoCal was listed as one of the top new restaurants by Open Table. And get this, Wine Enthusiast even had a feature article about the Columbus wine and distillery scene. And then there have been 3 articles in Food and Wine in the last couple of years. So the bottom line is Columbus is really one of the hot new restaurant and food scenes in the country, along with Austin and Nashville. But let's go back to 2019. That was a banner year. The number and quality of new restaurants, according to Columbus Underground, there were more than 100 new restaurants and bars. That's about 2 a week. And it's been tough keeping up, and it's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it, and I'm the man for the job. It seemed like there was one opening there'd be 4 or 5 even during the summer opening. That was really something. Some of the notable restaurants, and we'll talk about these a little bit again, the Ambrose and Eve on South High Street in a little house, 2 young chefs doing new American comfort food. Commune on South Parsons Avenue, it's gourmet vegetarian. Now I have a group that I call Romeo, retired old men eating out. And I took the Romeo group, 16 70-something carnivores, to this vegetarian restaurant. And believe it or not, they loved it. It was actually their favorite new restaurant of 2019. Go figure. Alqueria, which is a restaurant on King Avenue near Neil, with 2 former chefs from Barcelona. The Lox Bagel Shop, that's a terrific place with homemade lox, homemade pastrami, and it's where Lantibes used to be in the Short North. The Del Mar Southern Cal Kitchen, which is a Cameron Mitchell restaurant in the Short North. And then high above it, about 9 floors up, is Lincoln Social Rooftop, which is mostly bar food, but it's got great views. And it brings to a conclusion the fact that we call it the Cameron Mitchell North Short North, because Cameron Mitchell actually has 7 restaurants in that several block area. Another one that not everybody's heard about is Seesaw, which is again in the Short North. It's the product of James Beard award-winning chef Jonathan Sawyer of the Greenhouse Tavern in Cleveland. And then there's So Plated, another vegetable-centric but not vegetarian restaurant in Upper Arlington. One of my favorites is this new restaurant called Degrees, which is at Columbus State. It's in the Cameron Mitchell Hall, part of their culinary program. And they have a real professional chef and some really good food. Momo Gar was a huge sensation in 2019 with articles in Food and Wine and several other national publications, plus the cover of Columbus Monthly. It's Nepalese and Tibetan dumplings. Now, trust me, I'm a lawyer. No, trust me, they are fabulous. Mrs. Stover, I refer to her as the saintly and long-suffering Mary Stover. Whenever we go to the North Market or Saraga International Market at Morrison Mays, we always get dumplings. And most importantly, they travel well. You can bring them home and heat them up in the evening, and they're still great. And then, of course, Ritzy's. My old fraternity brother, Graydon Webb, reopened Ritzy's. And a couple of other themes I want to mention in passing that is really huge. Rooftop bars and restaurants. In the last 2 years, we've had more than 24 pop up in Columbus, Ohio. Distillery dining. There are more than a dozen distilleries in the central Ohio area, and 2 of the top 10 restaurants are in distilleries. Wood-fired cooking is come and gone, but Seesaw, Matt and Tony's Wood-fired, and a couple of other places are doing a lot of that. And as I mentioned, vegetarian and vegan. And then finally, delivery of every kind of food and beverage. Yes, you can get cocktails to go now, including virtual restaurants, which is nothing more than a kitchen and delivery. And even that gourmet French restaurant, Crochet, is doing ghost kitchens and delivery. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Well, that was then and this is now. On March 15th at 9 o'clock, Columbus bars and restaurants closed, and it really turned our dining scene upside down. Maybe it's forever changed. More than 25 years ago, 2/3 of the food dollar was spent on cooking at home. And at the end of 2019, 2/3 of the food budget, the family food budget, was spent in restaurants and on carryout or delivery. Then it all stopped. More than 23,000 restaurant locations in Ohio and 7,000 in Central Ohio shut down. U.S. restaurants lost 25 billion, 8 to 10 million jobs. Ohio restaurants lost 700 million just in 3 weeks, and U.S. restaurants lost $80 billion in the first couple of weeks alone. Meanwhile, hunkering at home, my wife and I were fine for a while. We really enjoyed being in our home, cooking together, opening some interesting wines. We were heartened to figure out that we had enough wine for 2 years, so we're not too worried. People were cooking so much that it was harder to find bread flour than hand sanitizer. But after a week or a month or so, not so much. Thank goodness for carryout. We've been trying to support our favorites and even getting carryout from fine dining places like the Refectory, if it's what we need to do to keep them going. And I think fine dining is at the greatest risk. Some, including Spagio, are gone forever now. Then on May 15th, after 2 months, Ohio restaurants were allowed to open for outdoor dining, and then a week later for indoor dining. But with all the restrictions that have become so familiar, by the way, plexiglass sales soared, including our own Columbus Plascolite. So where are we now, 7 months later? Well, last week I spoke with John Barker, the CEO of the Ohio Restaurant Association. 75% of restaurants have opened. Of those, 79% have reopened indoor dining, although I'm not so sure about that one. And 17% do not plan on reopening. However, 14% of restaurants have actually experienced an increase in sales. Many pizza and fast casual restaurants and those that have established carryout, drive-through, curbside pickup and delivery, and even outdoor dining have increased sales, some significantly. Places like La Tavola and Grandview and others. And I think they're starting to figure out the online ordering and contactless pickup, which people really like, that they don't have to actually go into the restaurant. Beer, wine, and spirit sales have soared, and White Claw hard seltzer sales are up 700%. Go figure. Now, most restaurants are able to serve between 40 and 70% of their former capacity. I think that's good news. I thought it would be 50% or less. Although even at that, making a profit is difficult. Cameron Mitchell restaurants are using some creative engineering like plexiglass, and they've been able to get some of their restaurants up to 75% of capacity. On the other hand, downtown restaurants in urban areas and fine dining are faring very poorly. And even Starbucks sales are down because of a lack of commuter traffic. Nobody's picking up their coffee on the way to work these days. And John Barker also expressed concern about a patchwork of rules that are ever changing. For example, Columbus didn't get around to allowing people to expand their outdoor dining onto the sidewalks until the end of September. How's that working right now with our little cool snap we've got? But here's the news. They're vigorously lobbying for PPP, and a recent survey of the Ohio Restaurant Association, up to 61% of respondents said they're not sure they can make it for 9 more months without some kind of help. The House relief bill that was passed includes $120 billion for restaurants, but it doesn't look like it's going anywhere right now. So please make no mistake about it. It's a very grave situation. especially with winter company. But there is some good news. I thought I'd give you a little report on what of the top restaurants are open in the hopes that you might visit them. Veritas is the #1 restaurant. It's downtown at the corner of Long and High Street in a bank building. They have the most beautiful bar in the Midwest and fine dining. They've been doing wine delivery and tastings, and they recently opened for carryout, and they're open on weekends. And it's the way the setup is, it's very socially distanced. Wolf's Ridge, the brewery, is open for curbside pickup and delivery, and they just opened in the alleyway beside them some outdoor dining space. They're calling it a new patio. Watershed Kitchen and Bar plans to stay closed through the end of 2020. Service Bar at Middle West Spirits as uber creative carryout. It's absolutely worth a try. The Refectory has done carryout. They've been all in all the time. They've been open since May. They do wine events. They have indoor and outdoor dining for the last couple of weeks, and they'll do picnics and carryout. So we've been there twice for carryout and enjoyed it very much. Bazzi Italia recently reopened for carryout Wednesday through Saturday. It is my favorite carryout experience so far. Hammett Miranova stays closed. Commune recently opened on Friday and Saturday for pickup. G. Michael's has carryout, and they have dining in now, and also their patio is open. Others, Gallery Bistro at the Hilton and the Guild House, since they're both in hotels, are logically open. La Tavola and Lupo, two of my favorites, and Nicola's up on Reed Road, and Giuseppe's in Bexley are all open, although Giuseppe's has limited indoor carryout. And there's some more good news. August and September sales were up. A lot of creative things are going on. Like here's a couple of the new restaurants you might be interested in. Chapman's Eat Market in the old Max and Irma's in German Village. A nationally known chef, B.J. Lieberman, who worked at 2 Michelin-starred restaurants in D.C., open for takeout. My food spies have given it rave reviews. I haven't done a carryout because it's a long way from German Village. They have a really good burger, shrimp and rice cakes, lamb shanks, Japanese fried chicken, and perhaps most popular, house-made ice cream by the pint. Walter Carpenter, a 30-year veteran of Cameron Mitchell, opened the Royce at Polaris, and they have a huge patio and outdoor dining and entertainment. And the menu features Southern American comfort food, also good reports. The Mid-City Garage in Marion Village near German Village, in a former auto repair shop, wood-fired pizza, sandwiches, and a full bar. Again, I'm getting good reports. The Cleaver on First Avenue in Grandview was formerly the Old Spot, a gastropub, and it's now owned by the people that own Butcher and Grocer. So it's got a very meat-centric menu, and they're open for tasting dinners. This is a good chance for a group of friends who want to get together and go out. I know there's a lot of pent-up desire to get out and about, so that's a good option. And also, Preston's a Burger Joint, which is a long-awaited burger place from the people that own Ambrose and Eve, is opening in the North Market. Columbus Food Adventures has a mystery dining program. They'll bring you a meal for 2 delivered from one of Columbus's new ethnic restaurants for $40. And they've done more than 1,000 of these, which shows what people are interested in. And then finally, Ghost Kitchens. There are 2 planned for Columbus. One is called Cloud Kitchens near the State Fairgrounds, which will have 40 partially equipped 200 to 300 square foot kitchens and arrangements for delivery. It's the perfect thing for a startup or for a restaurant that wants to expand their reach by delivery. There's another one called Kitchen United in Grandview, 10 to 20 restaurants. It's sort of like having a food truck without the truck. There's a kitchen, and then some of them have pickup, and they all have delivery. Well, So where do we go from here? Well, my crystal ball is a little bit cloudy. I see more touchless curbside pickup, carry out, much more delivery. I think ghost kitchens will happen. It could even change the grocery business because of the possible Amazonization of groceries, where you'll buy all your canned goods and toilet paper by Amazon and have it delivered. And then you might go to the grocery for deli meat, prepared foods, and those kind of things, sort of like Little Huffman's Market in Arlington or the Whole Foods in Bexley. It's a much smaller store. But I hope you'll please support your Columbus restaurants. Before you go, please check to ensure their status when they're open and things like that. But we got to support our Columbus culinary treasures, or we could lose them forever. One of my best friends said, "Oh, something else will come along." But I say, don't be so sure. Imagine life without your 5 favorite restaurants. I think we're all anxious to get out and about and see our friends. And I think dining together is the greatest social convention, having a glass of wine and chatting and enjoying food. But even if it's outside or carry out, I'm going out at least twice a week these days. And I hope you'll join me. Thanks for inviting me. And I think there's time for questions.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. Anybody have a question, please open up your mic and ask Steve a question.
I have a question. How do you find out about the ghost kitchens and how do you connect with them?
I Googled, a friend of mine, Graydon Webb, told me about the ghost kitchens. He is a Ritzy's guy. And I'll tell you the names of them again. One is called, where did I put it? Here it is. Cloud Kitchens. It's out of Chicago. And the other one is called Kitchen United. And I do think it's even less expensive for a startup than a food truck, and has a permanence, and you can do it year round, which is another disadvantage of food trucks. Although there are hundreds and hundreds of food trucks in Columbus, and many now moving to brick and mortar. Thanks for that question.
Thanks, Tricia.
Hey, Chip.
Yep. Hey, Craig.
Steve, interesting comments about the kitchens, following with Tricia's question. I don't think I heard anything about the new, is it called Dairy Barn or Dairy?
Oh, yes, it's the Bud Dairy.
Bud Dairy, thank you.
Now, I was in touch recently with Brian Hinshaw, who's the overall chef for all the Cameron Mitchell restaurants, and they said things have really slowed down because of the pandemic. It's on North 4th, just south of 5th Avenue. It's a really cool building, and it has parking. And they expect to have 9 chefs open little restaurants. There's a hummus restaurant. There's a fried chicken restaurant. Oh, the lobster people, the Cousins Lobster. And they each will have a little booth, and there's a common area in the middle for eating and a full bar. And I think it's a wonderful idea. And I think we want to support restaurants. Columbus has really been one of the great food incubators in the country. And I think this Cameron Mitchell Hall at the Columbus State will allow Columbus State to really expand their culinary and hospitality programs. And hopefully, when this is all over, bring Columbus to a new high in terms of that industry.
Anybody else?
Steve, do you ever
Oh, go
do you
ahead.
ever north of the border into Delaware County? Because we've got thriving downtown Delaware with more diversity and more condensed dining than Cameron Mitchell's short north.
Oh yes, I venture up there many times, from everything from Amato's Pizza to, I want to get to the new restaurant from Josh Dalton of Veritas. Veritas, the #1 restaurant in Columbus, just a year and a half ago moved to downtown Columbus. And the old one, there's a little Italian restaurant where Veritas used to be, and I'm blanking on the name right now. Speck, as in ham,
Yes.
cured ham. And then his 1808 restaurant, and of course the little burger joint on the main street. And I don't know what's the old one with the bakery that's just off
Bun.
Buns.
Bun. A quick tour of that beautiful downtown Delaware. Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of good choices.
I have a question, Chip.
Go ahead, Sandy.
Could you talk a little bit more about the rooftop dining and that scene? You mentioned it just briefly.
Sure. Columbus has really taken off with outdoor dining. Regrettably, the first one, which was Juniper, which was high atop the Smith hardware building, has since closed. I hope it's not permanent. But then there was one at the top of the on Bridge Park. It was a tapas place, and it is open. And they even in the winter have these little igloos, which are heated, and you can get, I think, up to 8 people into the little igloos. And it is and of course Lincoln Social, the Cameron Mitchell restaurant, a number of the brew pubs have got rooftop dining. It's not just a big deal in Columbus; it's a big deal all over the United States and around the world. Rooftop dining is here to stay, and it's a lot of fun too. And the Cameron Mitchell one, all the windows open up, and so it can immediately be in outdoors too. Seesaw has a really cool rooftop too.
Oh, okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Galen Graham. I was wondering, Steve, if you had any comments on Scali restaurant in Reynoldsburg?
Yes, it's an old-time favorite. My buddy Rich Terapak was just there for carryout on his anniversary and gave it high marks. And it is an institution on the east side. It's roughly at Livingston and 256, if I'm not mistaken. And I've been there many times. We've got a lot of really good Italians. My neighborhood, 1 mile away, is Nicola. And he is it's a family owned, and he literally cooks every plate. Bazzi Italia, as I said, was my best carry out meal. I had just for the record, I had a beet salad, which was outstanding. I had a charcuterie plate that we couldn't even finish. And because pasta doesn't travel very well, I had some superb short ribs on a bed of sweet corn, sort of a sweet corn ragu. Is anybody getting hungry?
Yes.
I'm starved.
All right. Well, Steve, I want to thank you again for being with us, giving us the update. Obviously, everybody is. I think there's a huge pent-up demand, not only among Rotarians, but obviously among all Columbus.
I wish it could have been more. I wish it could have been more upbeat, but I thought you ought to know the news and know that there is some light on the horizon, I hope.
Yeah. So if any of that you could share with Scott Brown, we might be able to share that and post that up on our website just to give people some insight, because you were talking very fast.
Yep.
So that'd be great.
I can send it to him. And we'll have at it.
All right. Sounds good. Well, we'll get you back after
Yeah.
we get kind of back to normal sometime next year.
Next year, 2020, early 2022, we'll do it.
That sounds
Thanks,
great.
everybody.
Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned.